Syntho is located in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, specialized in synthetic data generation. And yeah, we basically built a software solution to make sure that your test data is up to speed. And we differentiate by being the most versatile platform. We use and combine all synthetic data generation approaches in one platform, so that you have, given the use case, given the database that you have, all availability to optimize your test data. The fastest solution to make sure that how we can generate synthetic data with maximized speed and minimum clicks, and easy in terms of usage and collaboration, and making data generation accessible for all users, and that includes not only technical users but also non-technical users. Syntho's unique selling points: versatility. You want to have one engine with all synthetic data approaches supported in one platform, so that you always get the best data for every use case. So on the one hand, with Syntho, we have one platform for every approach. We will deep dive them into them on the right side. You're able to easily adapt to changing needs. So of course, your data changes over time. And you want to make sure that you always are covered to have the best test data to capture that. Tackle new scenarios with ease. Combine approaches in one single generation job, combining data masking, AI-generated synthetic data, and rule-based synthetic data, so that you have always not only the best combination, but have them all also hybridly combined. And of course, save budget and time, because you don't need to have 3 solutions. You have all of them in one platform, so that you can easily work towards the best test data. What are those solutions that we provide in the platform? I think maybe a good moment to also hand over the word to Stefan to walk you through the synthetic data approaches that are supported in the platform.
So as Syntho, we help clients with a wide variety of use cases. Typically we see that most of our clients within the software vendor space, at least, start with test data management and product feature development. Because this is a commodity. Practically every software vendor needs test data to test their new features, which they are continuously building. And every feature you build requires or a new set of data or production data, which you already have in your test environments or a copy of, so you can actually effectively test. What we see most of the times is that within feature development and within product development, developers spend 16% of their time actually coding. All the rest of their time, they're either creating their own data, because they don't have the right data sets available, or it's internal processes. And because of the legislation, where you are not allowed to utilize PII-sensitive data in test environments, for example, even though that a lot of companies do this, but even though that you're not allowed to use it, it's actually is affecting the data availability for a lot of these development processes. And therefore, in average, you see that a large amount of developers are waiting for weeks or sometimes months to get access to a certain amount of certain data set. And therefore, they're creating it themselves. And if you create it yourself, you are never able to thoroughly test these specific features and functions. And that results into more bugs in production. Whereas if you had a really good solution like Syntho, where you create a synthetic version of your data, to utilize that data quickly, but it's consistent. So every time the same input value arises, let's say the name Wimke Janssen, the same output value will arise across tables, across databases. So the consistency of your data set remains intact, but it's completely de-identified. And on top of that, you actually use rule-based synthetic data to create new content from scratch while still having certain correlations, which you can define yourself across your other columns in your table or in your databases, across tables. And therefore, you have a lot of freedom to create synthetic data quickly and therefore speed up innovation in that sense and speed up product development. Separate from that, when we see that companies actually start with product development and feature development, and then afterwards also for their full test data management processes, we see that most companies roll us out for demo data, because in the end, the products they sell themselves need to contain production-like data so they can actually present it effectively towards their clients. You have use cases for AI and analytics. So you require all the different data sets which you have available, but again, you're not allowed to utilize GDPR sensitive information or HIPAA sensitive information. Legislation is preventing you to do that. So therefore, utilizing synthetic data to create a version which is de-identified and completely privacy enhanced and secure, you're actually more enabled to utilize it at scale. So these are the typical common use cases we start with. Let me actually showcase you how that works within our platform. So typically when we do the deployment, we typically deploy locally, securely in the own environment of our clients, which takes 2 days. It deploys through Docker or Kubernetes. You download the images, you deploy us either on your own cloud infrastructure or completely off the grid if you want. But it starts by connecting Syntho towards your production data or to the data sets which you require to de-identify and create a synthetic version of. So here is where you would do that connection. It's relatively straightforward. You fill in all the details. It goes really fast. We will write the synthetic version of your data towards a destination database, which you set up as well. And this is where you want to automate processes. So if you want to utilize our API to automate entire processes for test data management purposes, for example, that's possible through this UI. In the end, when you make that connection, you created what we call a workspace. And that looks like your original production database. But what we do is our AI solution will automatically scan for all PII sensitive information within your database across all the different tables. That will save you time and energy, of course, but also it will enhance your privacy so you don't forget anything, right? Our AI will actually also suggest you with the best methods to actually de-identify those sets. And that can be utilizing our masking synthetic data, rule-based synthetic data, or AI-generated synthetic data. As you can see within this environment, it's currently 24 unprotected columns in the database and 21 we already protected, but also a large amount of columns which across all these tables which don't have PII sensitive information. So here you can see all the tables which are part of this platform. You can bulk apply multiple configurations if you want from this screen. But to make it more visible, I'm going to showcase you how it would look like in this table. So here you see that all these columns are already de-identified. And because it's PII, but it's not flagged in red from our side. Here you have social security number. So if I would click on here, you can see that we use the calculated column to create a certain amount of content. But what you typically would do is you would go select a mocker. It's a de-identification method using mocking synthetic data. And if I would select social security number, I can select that I want to have this consistent. That means that every time this social security number arises in this table across these databases, the same input value will change towards the same output value. I can actually preview how the content would look like as well, and I can start de-identifying those sets. So typically what we see when you want to accelerate product development, when you want to accelerate feature development, getting access to data which you can quickly de-identify and make sure that it's the perfect set for your specific test case, you can start generating this from here. And you can do all the configurations you would like. Typically, when you set it up, afterwards you start automating it. A really nice example here is, for example, consistency in your test data is extremely important. So every time Boston arises, and here you have Boston, 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 you want to make sure that it has the same output value. And this is where if you would apply a mocker again, and I would select city, I select consistent mapping, and if I would preview it here, you will see that the generation of Boston is now consistently done with Magia view. This will happen not only within this table and within this column, but it will happen across tables, it will happen across the databases. So for every time this input value arises, the same output value will arise as well. And this will keep your consistency, which is of course of extreme importance during testing purposes. Where companies struggle is that when they have these columns, a lot of their tables actually and a lot of their columns don't contain PII sensitive information by itself, like longitude, latitude, and healthcare expenses. But if you would combine these columns, suddenly an identifier arises. And this is not an identifier which is determined by GDPR or by HIPAA. But if you would use this data in a test environment, you can actually make that or utilize that data to backwards traceable identify an individual. Because if you suddenly have a really small village in the middle of India, but with someone who has an extremely high healthcare expense, it's probably identifiable to that individual person. So what we do in that case is you would apply AI-generated synthetic data on all these columns combined. You would confirm it. Then when you have confirmed those identifiers, a model will be locally trained, which we ship together with our product, will be locally trained and creates a synthetic set of this data containing the same statistical values which the production set of data has. And by utilizing these combinations, you can actually generate privacy secure data for your testing environments or for your product feature environments where you actually require that data. What we see a lot where software vendors struggle the most is where they want to create a new feature and they need a type of content which they don't have yet because they are just building this feature and creating this feature. So they want to build content from scratch. But it still has to have a certain correlation towards your other columns in your data sets. So here's where rule-based synthetic data, which shows here as calculated columns, enables you to create data from scratch where you define the rules yourself. So here it actually states when you want to create an email address, it refers to the first name column. It will generate that first name. Then you can place a dot in between if you want. Then you generate the last name column, which is the same. You refer to the other column of last name. You create an @ symbol and you do an email on top of it. And suddenly you actually create data from scratch, still having those correlations towards your other columns. And you have the full flexibility here to apply this and make this as complex as you would like. And this typically helps with edge case creation. So when you want to create new content from scratch, or you have an edge case where you don't have enough content for it yet, and you want to thoroughly test that, you need to generate more types of rows for this to actually effectively test all the edge cases. So this is where we see that most of our software clients, software vendor clients, are actually utilizing our platform, combining these three methods to enhance their data availability for product development, for feature development, for making sure that they are GDPR compliant, but also for data sharing. So when you want to share data externally with other people, you don't want to share data which is potentially identifiable towards individuals, because then you're potentially getting fined. Of course, you have POCs and pilots. So you do POCs and pilots yourself for solutions which you're implementing, where you require the data to effectively test it. But also, when a client, we're working with a new client, and you want to implement your solution and validate that with a POC or pilot, they can actually then share the data set. You create a synthetic version of that data set, which you then use for the POCs and pilots, versus utilizing real production data in a POC or pilot, which is typically less secure. So separate from this, we see that, of course, you have all the configurations which you can apply manually. By the way, every time you do this specific configuration, you can bulk apply this. So for everywhere where email is in your data set, across tables, you can apply it in one go across this database connection. But these are all the table the inside the table configurations. Here you can also see that we have the table settings. So let's say in a lot of cases you have a data set and maybe you have 10,000 rows in your data set, but you want to do a stress test. So you can utilize our platform to generate 1 million rows if you want, or 2 million rows if you want. So you have a large amount of flexibility utilizing synthetic data for all these different use cases to enhance your time to value. And by increasing the data availability, that's the biggest key, while being secure and while being privacy sensitive. So you have a large amount of flexibility here as well. So here you can see the settings for training, AI training models as well. Of course, we have the foreign keys, which we take into account. You can actually share and work together within our platform with other colleagues. So if you did all types of configurations and you want to share those configurations, you can share it without access to the original data or with access to the original data, or you can prevent them from modifying any configurations. In the end, when we press generate here, then all these configurations which you apply across all these different columns will actually be generated with a synthetic version, which you then write towards your destination database. And from that destination database, you start using it for your test data management purposes, or product development, or analytics, or demo data. And then when you are happy with those configurations, you can actually automate these processes. So utilizing our API will really help to continuously speed up these processes. And that's where you gain the big value out of our platform, where you don't have the data bottlenecks within the company, making data availability not an issue anymore. Where typically we see that 40% can be actually, you can have a benefit of 40% in speeding up your development cycles, because the time people actually spend on getting data or creating data and waiting for the data will be prevented.
Thanks for all the insights. So why should you choose Syntho?
Yeah. So of course, there's a lot of solutions across the globe who provide synthetic data generation. Typically, you have the more legacy types of solutions. They typically only work with masking capabilities, which is, of course, good for creating the consistency within your data sets across multiple tables. The more modern solutions are using AI-generated synthetic data, but you see that only AI-generated synthetic data works really well with a limited amount of tables. Because at one point there will be inconsistencies in the data sets. And where Syntho actually makes a difference is by combining masking, by combining AI-generated and combining rule-based synthetic data, so we can actually generate the best set for each individual use case, and therefore enable you to really roll out quickly. That's the unique selling point of Syntho, and why you should evaluate a solution like ours. Of course, separate from that, we're extremely client-focused. Our platform is easy to use, so it's intuitive. People adopt it really quickly. Therefore, you gain the max value out of our platform. It's fast. So with a minimal amount of effort, you can actually do configurations, generate a synthetic data set for that specific use case. So I can talk for hours about it. But I think those points are the most important ones.
So yeah, I think hereby our contact details. So in this slide, you will find on the one hand my email address and the email address of Stefan. Feel free to reach out to one of us or both of us. Yeah, by that, I would like to thank you all for joining and your active participation. And we are, of course, all looking forward to see you in the future, either during a demo or during a future webinar. Looking forward to stay in touch and hope to see you all soon. Thank you.